So the icebreaker question is, how would you reimagine a perfect world for young people? So if you could like type that in the chat, we'll read some out loud. But the panelist is going to answer that too. They're going to share their name as well as their pronouns. And yeah. So again, my name is Julie. My pronouns are she, her. And for me, like when I reimagine a world for like young people or youth, I see a world where their voice are valued and their ideas are not put down and like really elevated, because I feel like youth have such amazing ideas, and having it elevated and like being poured into will really give them the confidence they need to become the leaders of the world. So yeah, that's me.
Hi everybody, my name's Nee. My pronouns she, hers. I'm from New Hampshire. I'm with Arise. And when I think about a perfect world for youth, similar to what Julie said, when they have a voice at the table when it comes to government policy decisions, since it impacts them directly. But I also think in terms of the school curriculum, with when it comes to school, I want you. I feel like a perfect world for youth is where they feel seen and heard, and don't feel obligated to go to school every day, and feel like school is a place for them to grow and learn from each other.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tyron Boyd. I'm from Mississippi. My pronouns are he and him. A perfect world for young people, to me, would probably be a world where young people are seen, accepted, heard, and appreciated, even for their flaws and all. I think that'd be a perfect world for everyone. That's my little gist.
Everyone, my name is Trace Terrell. I use he, him pronouns. And kind of echoing what all the other youth panelists said, I would have to say that a perfect world for youth is one in which youth are respected, valued, treated as stewards of their own lived experience, and able to participate in opportunities at all levels. I really think that we are on an equal playing field to the adult workers in this field, and that we deserve a seat at the table.
Hello, everybody. My name is Natalie Clark. I use she, her pronouns, and I am from Salt Lake City, Utah. When I envision a perfect world for young adults, I envision everyone remembering what it was like to be young, right? We all kind of, I think, get separated from what was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, some people even 50 years ago, right? So I think not losing that connection of what it was like to go through these things, and holding that expectation of, well, I didn't get what I needed when I was young, so I'm going to ensure these future generations maybe get what I didn't get, or they get what I did get that made me more supported to be where I am today.
Read some of the chat right now.
A few from the chat. Lonnie Wen, she, her pronouns. She says, I envision a world where youth have autonomy over their bodies and have access to what they need to feel whole, supported, and celebrated. Lisa says, with an accepting and open-minded society and a loving family surrounding them. Lonnie says, also that youth have families, whether they are families of origin or chosen, every youth should have loving, supported families. Brittany says, a world where young people are well informed about the world around them, including resources, services, supports, cultures, etc. Madison says, a perfect world for young people would be a world where young women have opportunities without barriers. They are appreciated, encouraged, and motivated by others. I think that young people need to be valued and appreciated for their perspective. Miriam says, I think that it would be similar to what our panelists are mentioning, which is that they are seen and heard and trusted with their own experience. Travis says, a place where young people are able to explore identity, opportunity, and personal development in a safe and supported environment. Cody A perfect world would be where adults would hear from youth what their perfect world would entail. And Jennifer says, no negative social media message and no bullies. Neither would exist. We would all be building ourselves. And Angie says, I envision a world where young people use their voice and they are heard, where collaboration is greatly valued, where disagreements are handled with productive communication, and everyone's perspective, values, and beliefs are honored.
Everyone for sharing some of your amazing input. I really value it. Thank you so much. I'm gonna pass it on to Trace.
Good morning, everyone. I want to extend another warm welcome to those in person and to those online for joining us here today at day 2 of the Youth in Transition Policy Summit. As a reminder, yesterday we listened to some wonderful presentations from North Carolina Integrated Care for Children, the Children's Partnership, and the National Black Women's Institute, and the Utah Department of Juvenile Justice and Youth Services. We also heard from Dr. Angela Diaz of Mount Sinai Adolescent Health Center and Lydia Prue from Youth Move National. I'm excited to open the conversation today by sharing some impressions from day 1 and then opening the floor up to the other youth panelists. I have 2 main impressions. I'll start with the first. Number 1, integrated care models are just part of the expectation of care from adolescents and young people. There's this beautiful metaphor that a flower cannot grow with just water. Of course, it requires sunlight and carbon dioxide, but sometimes it even needs nutrient supplements and leaf care and so much more. How can we expect people to flourish when some of their needs are met and others are left at the door? We cannot continue to provide services and systems in silos. We need to ensure that the infrastructure exists for our models of care to communicate in substantive and impactful ways. I imagine it like this. In our current system, when we seek care, we free climb a rope. If another issue arises that causes us to lose our grasp, which it commonly does, then we just fall to the floor. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can weave together a safety net that will capture all of us. Integrative care saves lives. Young adults recognize the failures of the current system and expect that our care will be changed and changed radically. As Dr. Diaz commented yesterday, our care needs to be from head to toe, mental to dental. Number 2, youth engagement is also an opportunity for youth development. We talk a lot about what partner organizations can gain from youth involvement. Youth provide expertise, lived experience, and perspectives that others simply cannot. We are an invaluable resource in the consulting space. What is sometimes left out of that conversation, though, is what youth can gain from engagement opportunities, especially in the long term. A theme that emerged from yesterday's discussions and from Lydia's presentation is that youth engagement is also a platform for skill and capacity building in young people. We learned from the H3 Collective that teens involved developed advocacy, self-efficacy, and other professional skills. And they were then able to take those skills and translate them in other areas of their life. So in addition to Hart's Ladder, I urge those considering and evaluating opportunities for youth engagement to think about what happens after the opportunity concludes and after the young person moves into a different involvement space. What translatable skills and experiences are we providing them? How can we empower these young people to be stewards of the next generation of adolescent and young adult leaders in the future? Ask your young people what makes the experience valuable and worthwhile to them, and construct together an investment plan for their development. Thank you.
Good morning once again. It's quite hard to go after someone who summed everything up yesterday, so I won't be before you long. I just would like to say yesterday was very, very informative, to say the least. It's so hard to put so much in just little words, so I'm just going to say this. I am happy to have a seat at the table, happy to hear that so many organizations are fighting for adequate change. I feel empowered, I feel heard, and I'm ready to conquer whatever the world will throw at my feet. Now let's end today on a great note. Thank you.
So growing up in a predominantly white community, I never felt my voice being seen because I never saw myself in textbooks or in my classrooms. And whenever I try to say something, adults will always try to overlook my voice and say that, oh, it's not, it's our hands are tied, or we don't have the budget enough for this. And seeing and being at this place where adults and seeing adults trying to support youth and create systems where youth can break against the systemic barriers that's that keeps suppressing the voice. It makes me feel a lot more hopeful about about the future generations and what youth can do. You can do that's beyond their supposed limitations that our systems has placed on us. So thank you for having me here today. I'm so grateful to hear about your future policies.
Something that really stood out to me from yesterday's policy summit was the California one and how involved the youth were. They were the one interviewing the other youth. And I feel like when I read the policy, I felt my voice being represented. I felt really seen. I seen my peers in those data. I seen their voice really elevated, and that really made me hopeful for the changes that is needed because our problems are being shown to those policymakers. So yeah.
I think this policy summit is such a wonderful example of how policy can be done correctly and how policy can be done with improving young people at every stage and every step possible. And I think this is a really great example. We're all learning and we're all growing, and we all have much more room to go when it comes to quality and authentic youth engagement. And I am just so grateful. Yesterday, what stood out to me was Youth Move's presentation specifically, because I think it was delivered so eloquently. And I hope everyone took every word of that to heart, because it really is so important and efficient. And if it's done correctly, then we have policy that have our young people sitting here saying, I feel seen, I feel heard, and this is the way it should be. So I think we all have a duty and a responsibility to be replicating that in every space that we can. And I feel so honored to be in this space with all of these young panelists today.
Kind of diving back into that, we would love to hear from the audience if there are any questions or comments about day one, things that stood out to you, things that went well, maybe things that also didn't go well. That's also a very valuable learning experience. We'll give a few seconds for that, but we would love to hear from the attendees today.
So a lot of what we've talked about has been like so many of the systems in place that are causing youth to not have access to the support they need, their basic needs to be met. And I guess with that, I'm curious from y'all, what is like, if you could change one policy, like the number one thing that you wish was different, that you see as like tangible change that could be made?
Start off with this one. Lower the voting age to 16. Youth are such powerful forces in the political landscape, and the fact that we're all up here today shows that we are on the same playing field as you. We deserve to have our voice heard and heard from a young age, and lowering the voting age does that. I really resonate with that policy, and it's one that I hope to see adopted across the nation.
If I could change one thing, it would definitely be education. Education, we're not talking about the things that we need to be talking about. We're teaching more so of, I would say, the algebra and the sciences, but what about teaching young people about credit, about investing, about just financial literacy, the culinary arts, things that they will actually need. I'm not saying they won't actually need the life, because these are important. In every school, whether it's in a very high class, we can call it environment, or low class, everyone should have the same opportunity to learn the pivotal things that will set them up for future. Coming from a underserved community, we don't have everything that we need to be successful, and that can be changed because we have enough tax dollars going around for every school to be funded the correct way. That's my little spiel.
My one policy, it speaks to what happened in Tennessee, is changing the gun laws so that everyone in schools can feel protected. Because how can we learn and grow from each other when we don't even feel protected in the space that we have to go to every day?
Mine would definitely be around mental health because mental health is very important because if you're not right mentally, you're not right spiritually, physically, emotionally. And looking at the California's policy about including peer mental health supports, I thought that was amazing because youth understand other youth. They understand the problems they're going through. They understand the addictions. They understand the coping mechanisms that are always healthy. They understand those things. And having someone to talk to that um, has been through what you've been and really have empathy and show love is what I would like to be like more implemented around like the country because yes, California is doing it and other states are including it, but like having it as like a national thing would be amazing. So, yeah.
Wow, these are also great. I want to echo all that were said. I think one that I would personally focus on would just be healthcare coverage. As a young person with an ACE score of 9, I am higher and more likely to experience so many health disparities, and I have not had health insurance since the age of 17. So I really think that we're not setting our younger generation up to be a healthy generation if they don't even have the basics from the dental to the mental. So I really think having coverage for all would just be my one that I would have to focus on first.
I have a question real quick. So kind of piggybacking off of Annie's question, is there a policy that has changed or occurred kind of in your lifetime that has had a positive impact on how these systems have worked for you? I know that's kind of a hard question, but I'm curious if you've seen that kind of in your lifetime and in your kind of lifespan within these systems.
I would have to say back in 2018, I was a part of the Family First Services Prevention Act implementation here in Utah, all the way in Washington, D.C. with Orrin Hatch. And I think that really made a big difference for the young people that are coming into the system, but also the families that are served. It allowed us to actually put resources towards serving the family instead of just taking the kid away and saying, figure it out. I think Family First Services Prevention Act, it has had a ripple effect on not just the child welfare system, but juvenile justice and a lot of other areas. So I would have to use that as my example.
Hop in next. I'm going to have to give a shout out to my home state of Oregon for Oregon Senate Bill 52, also known as Addie's Act, which requires school districts to have a comprehensive plan to suicide prevention. That also includes supports for communities disproportionately impacted by suicide and other negative mental health challenges. That includes the LGBTQ community, those that score lower on the youth success metric, and the BIPOC community as well. I had the opportunity to work on the implementation of this bill in my school district, and the effect that we had was amazing. We were able to use funding from the state to actually build out mental health supports for students, which was just such a great opportunity and so amazing to see future students have the resources that I wish I had growing up. And so, yeah.
I would say I don't know if I guess it didn't directly affect me, but for a very long time, teachers in Mississippi were paid very, very, very low. And I want to say like last year or maybe the year before that, they received a raise. And that tells me that there's a future and that our teachers do deserve more, and someone is finally speaking up about it and paying them for what they are worth. And although we definitely still have a bunch of more work to do in for its compensation, it's definitely far from where we started.
for me, it would definitely be the Trauma Informed Schools Act. Young Voices was at the forefront of advocating for that policy. So that bill being passed made it for teachers to be trained in restorative justice as well as mental health first aid. And I think that's really important because a lot of students, a lot of youth do face mental health challenges, and having that implemented in schools with teachers who already have those background in restorative justice is really important.
I just want to put out a note of appreciation for everyone who is at this conference. Thank you for being willing to listen to the youth voice and for being here with us in this space. We really appreciate it, and the fact that you're here means that you are a change maker and that you are willing to dismantle the systems that perpetuate negative youth involvement. So thank you.